Hi everyone, I'm back with another film review. I had a little bit of a break, had been feeling a bit under the weather, but back now, and what a great film to start with, Captain Mar-Vell. So, we're going to do our usual thing, which is, should you see it? Should you see it in the cinema? Then we'll have a little break, we'll talk about the film, and then we'll have spoilers. And most of the discussion will be in spoilers so that I don't inadvertently wreck anything. So this is the 21st film in the Mar-Vell cinematic universe. It comes with a lot of baggage, really, because it's, of course, the first female power-led film in the MCU. Although I remember a little film called Elektra, which everyone's kind of forgotten, which was the sequel to Daredevil, which at that time was Mar-Vell, but anyway. It's the main kind of beast now in the franchise and is the lead in to Avengers Endgame. So, should you see it in the cinema? Yes. This is a real big, cinema film, fun to watch, take the whole family, and really, if you have a daughter, there's some stuff which really speaks to that experience. There are flashbacks when she's much younger. And it's a big, bold film. You want to see it on the biggest screen possible. The other thing I will say is, just so you know, there are two stingers, one halfway through the credits. That's really good. You must stay for that one. Then there's one at the end which is kind of just silly, and you could probably, if you want to hang around, sure, but it's probably not worth it, that one. Okay, I'll be back in a second. So as I said, I'm going to do most of my discussion in spoilers because I don't want to ruin everything. So we'll just cover, the nuts and bolts now. So this film is directed, and I even have to check, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. Now they're a directing writing partner, and they've been on the indie scene for a while. And their last film I thought was really good, and that was Mississippi Grind. But most people probably know them for a film called Half Nelson, which actually kind of broke Ryan Gosling, and he got an Academy Award nomination for it. So they're real indie, and they're an interesting pick for a film like Captain Mar-Vell with a huge budget, lots of action. And I think they've been brought in because they needed to show the humanity of a character who, from the trailer, starts off as a human and ends, somewhere like a demigod. And back and forth. So I think they do a really good job with what they've been brought in to do, which is to make Brie Larson shine and to get all the human and not super, alien beings which are in the film, to get all those relationships right. Because they're doing some incredibly complicated storytelling. Not only is this, I think people are going, oh, it's just another origin story, and it is and it isn't. Not only is it the origin story of Captain Mar-Vell, okay, check, you expected that. It's also the origin story of Nick Fury, which you mightn't get, and they use de-aging, computer kind of de-aging on Samuel L. Jackson and Greg Clarkson. And it doesn't really work that well on Greg Clarkson for some reason, but it works really well on Samuel L. Jackson because the film is set in the 90s. So I think that they are really good at all that part, but the action is not that great. I think they get a little bit lost. And because, as I said, this is really ambitious storytelling, I do think that the first act is extremely clunky. And the reason is they've got to put all these pieces of expositional storytelling in place so that once those dominoes get knocked over, you then really march through in the second act and then the third act. Because by the second act, she's on Earth, and then it really, the film starts really motioning along because it becomes a bit of a buddy film between Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, and Captain Mar-Vell. Let's look at the cast. So Brie Larson, you know her because she's just great at everything. I first knew her as Envy Adams in Scott Pilgrim, my favorite kind of fun film. But most people probably know her from her Academy Award winning performance in Room. And she's great in that. And she's great in this in a way which there's a reason why they've gone for a great dramatic actor and then turned her into an action star, because it's very hard to do it the other way around. She is charismatic at the same time as really human, but she does an interesting thing is she's always in control of the scene. And that is shown the most in the way that she controls Fury and some of the others. Samuel L. Jackson, really good performance. Doesn't look I think he's 72 years old. But when he moves, he runs like an old man. So it's kind of funny. Doesn't matter what you do, you can't CGI that out. And then you have the great Australian actor, my favourite, Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, who's in the trailers, and he's obviously one of the skin shifters, shape changers, the Skrull. What I love about Ben Mendelsohn, though, is when he speaks when he's shifted to a human, he speaks with an American accent, and he sounds very much like a politician, like Donald Rumsfeld or something like that. But when he's an alien, he just uses an Australian accent. And I think the thinking must have been, well, you want it to be in English and you want it to be a bit off. And so he just said, well, I'll just speak Aussie. And it kind of works, but it's a little bit weird, maybe to my ear, to see this alien just speaking Australian. He's really good because he can do comedy. So the three of them do a lot of comedy. But I will say some of it does seem a bit forced, a little bit too silly. Then you have, just got to check her name, Lashana Lynch. She plays Maria Rambeau, and I don't know her as well. I've seen her around. She is really good, and I think she is very good at establishing the female relationship between her and Captain Mar-Vell, and something a little bit more on an equal footing, just out of that old friendship. And finally, you have two superstars. Annette Bening plays a few different roles, and I don't want to kind of get into it, but her main role is Wendy Lawson, who she's kind of a bit of a mentor, and she's kind of having a lot of fun. And then finally Jude Law, who's always good, and he plays, and he's got a weird name, Yon-Rogg, and he's one of the main Kree and Captain Marvel's kind of main mentor off-planet. So you got this big mix. Whenever the film flags for a second, they just wheel out another charismatic actor. Look, I think all the elements of the film and the thematic parts of the film are great. I think it's a bit clunky in the beginning, and I do think that the action scenes are not that innovative. But I also had some of the same criticism for Black Panther. But overall, I think this film is quite important. I'm going to talk about that in spoilers. I think this film might be looked at in 20 years, like all great science fiction, tells you more about 2019 than it does 1990s. Okay, bye. Okay, so let's talk about this film, and in spoilers now, you've seen the film, you now know that we realize that the origin story of Vers, who is really Carol Danvers, who is really Captain Mar-Vell, allows this interesting look at a theme which is very common right now in 2019, which is called gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is actually from a film from I think the 30s. I saw it years and years ago, in which, in the original film, a woman is convinced she's going insane by her male partner, her husband. So it became then this term for when you are convincing someone of something which isn't true. And in this film, the reason why I think this film is very, very powerful and very much more interesting than just the normal, photon bolts and everything is that from a very early age, Carol Danvers is told she's not strong enough, she's not good enough, she can't do it, she's not going to get the opportunity, and she wants to be an Air Force pilot, she wants to go faster, she wants to go as fast as the guys. And she's always told to stop. And then Yon-Rogg, Jude Law, specifically says to her, you need to tone everything down, not use your emotions. And he kind of gaslights her into not being as powerful as she could be. And then over the film, Captain Mar-Vell or Danvers breaks that and realizes, no, what gives her power is being herself. Emotional, messy, maybe, but being a fully articulated woman. And once she embraces that, smash, she's off. And she goes to this next level. And I think that is really a clever way to do it. And the way they do it is the best scene in the film, by far to me. No dialogue. They show, this is right near the third act turn, is they show her becoming Captain Mar-Vell by showing still scenes or just little montages of all the times she got told she wasn't good enough from a very young child all the way through till she becomes Captain Mar-Vell. And so much power, because she's a powerful person, but this is actually a film about empowerment. Big difference. And I think that's a lot of people say, oh, she's going to have the same problem as Superman. I'm not so sure, because Superman's all about the power. But this film is about how she got empowered, and I don't think she's going to forget that as a human character. So I think that was really, really good. I will say the best line is the line which they're now using in Air Force advertising, and it's not only the line itself, but it's the way Larson delivers it, which is faster, better, higher, baby. And I can't do it justice. When she says that, you go, okay, this is a movie star. Fantastic. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which is very interesting, and I'm still thinking it through, is the film sets you up so that you're rooting for Captain Mar-Vell and she's with the Kree. We see that Wendy Lawson's Kree, so they must be the good guys. They seem to be doing good things. They don't seem to be hurting people. And we see the Skrull, and they seem to be a bit, weird and not as good looking, because of course the Kree are human looking, although they're blue. And the film eventually flips that narrative and says, it's actually the dispossessed, the refugee, who should have our sympathy. And the Kree are very much the patriarchy, the full-on power. I don't know if it's too much of a bow to go, this really looks like, when you look at Israel and Palestine, you have the nation which we all have respected for a number of years and all supported, and now don't seem to be doing the right thing to the dispossessed. And if it's not them, even if you just draw the longer bow to all the dispossessed right now, especially as Africans go to Europe, to just be able to feed themselves. It's saying a lot, which is always what good science fiction should do. This film isn't about the 1990s, although I like the soundtrack, and I actually don't mind. Like a lot of people have, kind of knocked the use of No Doubt. I actually thought it was kind of okay. Yeah, it's cheesy, but I can live with that. It says more about 2019 than it does 1990. It's a really interesting film. I think you should see it. You could see it just as a fun thing, or you could see it and maybe have a bit of a think about it. Either way, you'll have a good time. That's it for today. Got a backlog of films and books to do, so I'm going to try and knock that off over the next couple of weeks and catch up a little bit. So if you like what I'm doing, hit like, subscribe. I'm always doing stuff, although I didn't the last couple of weeks. And if you want, I'm also on Twitter at Guru Eden, and I'll see you then. Bye.